Welcome back to the Chasing Happiness podcast, an honest podcast about finding happiness, what it really means, and the process of getting there. Today's episode, I am happy to welcome Beci Mehnken from MEI Travel, and we have so many things to talk about because of the last year. But Beci, for anybody who doesn't know you, do you want to just give them a brief overview of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, that's such a loaded question. I could probably talk forever just on that because especially over the past year, my job description has changed quite a lot.
Sure.
I am the founder, president, and CEO of MEI Travel. We are a retail travel agency that specializes in helping people make their dreams come true. We do everything from any cruise around the world when they're sailing. We have areas and people, vacation planners across the United States. I have about 90 of them now.
Wow.
And they are specializing in different areas, whatever their passion is, whatever drives them. So for us, we have specialists in everything from the food and wine of Europe to Disney World to Universal Studios and Hawaii. So different people will grab onto their passion and they will specialize in those areas. So we plan vacations. We help people make those vacation dreams come true for the best value, which is a big deal as well. But more than anything, a vacation planner is really a client advocate. So we don't just go and find the hotel and take your credit card. We're also there to help find the right hotel for you. And then if something goes wrong when you're traveling, we're there to help you. That was more than obvious this year when all of a sudden everybody was planning their spring break vacations last year in 2020. And, bam, we're hit with the pandemic. So like I had mentioned before, our job descriptions have somewhat morphed over time, but more so than anything, we are here to help find the best vacation experience for the dollars you're spending.
And I can attest, having used MEI Travel more than once, you guys are fantastic at what you do. And you mentioned how much it's sort of changed for you over the last year, because let's face it, in the last year, you have basically had to figure out a way to not just sort of reschedule as places have closed or been unable to book, but you've had to figure out a way to sort of manage all of these different things. Like you said, you have 90 people who are essentially working for other people, like booking their vacations, doing all of their planning. That must have been quite a headache for you to have to deal with in the beginning.
Everything turned on a dime in a 24-hour period, because as we started hearing about it, I mean, I've been through a lot. I've been in the business now for 22 years, and I bought my first travel agency 9 days after September 11th.
Wow.
So I've seen the ups and downs of the travel industry, but I've never seen anything quite like this, where we were hearing about the virus that was coming across. And I live in Washington State. So it actually happened in my backyard, was the first place it was discovered in the US. And I happened to be in Florida when it happened. But as we start hearing about it, you start getting people ready and thinking, okay, there's something coming. We have to keep our eye on this. But then all of a sudden the phone rings, and I had a huge event for one of my advertising partners in Disneyland. And I was supposed to get on the plane the next day to go and handle this event. And the phone rings, and I got the notice. They said, "I'm sorry, Disneyland is closing tomorrow and your event will not be scheduled."
Oh my gosh.
So all of a sudden, bam, I had about 100 people that were either inbound to Disneyland, on their way there, or already there. So we had to jump in and go, okay, how do we get people home? How do we handle this? How do we make sure that everybody's aware that it's been canceled? And so that changed. And then the next day, one after another, Disney parks started closing, and then cruise lines started canceling. So we went from going to find the perfect match of a vacation to, okay, we need to reschedule you. And most people thought we were maybe a month, maybe 2 months at most, and everything would be fine. So we're scheduling things out 2 months out, just to find ourselves rescheduling and canceling and rebooking. So just like the suppliers ran into a situation where their business is not set up to handle thousands of refunds. That's not their business. So when it hit them, all of a sudden that caused a huge backlog. So part of our job description became, we're going to be on hold for the 6 or 8 hours it will take to get that refund for our clients, so our clients didn't have to. That became our job. And then trying to predict what was going to happen in the future. Chasing future cruise credits and managing the policies of over 100 different suppliers that we work with on a daily basis. And each one of them were handling it different. So having to remember all of that and take it in and process it and then apply it and make sure that all the clients had the best case scenario for their particular situation. It was quite a challenge, and it still remains to be to this day.
I'm sure. I can't even, with just as fast as things have been changing in regards to every aspect of this pandemic over the last year, I can't imagine having to keep up with how quickly, hotels and cruise lines and theme parks and even just resorts, like think about all the different places. I live in the Niagara region in Southern Ontario, and I'm thinking about like winery tours and things like that. Like everything would have been affected. That's so much.
And my heart goes out to people like the small cruise towns that are in Alaska, that their entire, or not an entire, but a good majority of their income comes from the tourist market. And this is going to be their second season without any tourists. So while I'm sure that they're happy that their towns aren't overrun with a bunch of tourists from a 2,000 capacity cruise ship every day, they're losing out on a lot of revenue that keeps those people going. So, and that's just one location. This is worldwide.
Yeah.
What I do admire, though, in a lot of ways, is how a bunch of these businesses did turn on a dime so quickly, and the decision processes that they had to make, and having to make changes so quickly as they had to adapt. I look at those people like the cruise lines, or Disney in particular is a good one. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in those meetings on how they were going to tackle this, because there's no playbook. There's no example of how this should be handled in this day and age. So it would have been a masterclass in business operations. And I hope that after we're through this, some of those executives will come through with some lessons for us, or write a book to kind of let us know that thought process.
Absolutely. And I think from a Disney standpoint, especially because they've tried to keep the parks open, I understand they did have to shut down temporarily, but they figured out a way to reopen. They figured out a way to try to keep people employed, to keep people safe throughout the process. And I think there's so many lessons that could be learned from that debate process that they would have had to have gone through. I'm 100% with you. Somebody needs to write a book or create a podcast or something.
Yeah, especially when you've got the PR issue out there. You've got a pandemic, so you want to keep everybody safe, but yet you want to keep everybody employed. And those are two very different priorities.
Absolutely.
And to try to find the middle ground where you can keep your business operational and still keep people safe. I think that was just a brilliant way that they have attacked the whole process. And for me, some things that a lot of people don't realize is that our services are free. We don't charge our clientele. There are travel agencies out there who do for specific things, but we believe truly that our services are paid by commissions that are done through the supplier. So they pay us. You don't pay us, they pay us. But they pay us when you travel.
Right.
So everything that was booked and ready to go in March had to move, right? So we had to do the same amount of work to move a reservation, and then they didn't travel again, and then we moved the reservation and they didn't travel again. So in some cases, we've moved people 5 up to 10 times. So we may be doing 10 times the work, but still not being paid a year later because they still haven't traveled. So we've kept our business up and floating thanks to the PPP loans that were available here in the U.S., some in the EIDL and other things that were made available to us. And then just literally clamping down on every possible expense so that we can keep the doors open until we get through this tunnel that, we've been staring at for a year.
Right. Oh, that's, I think a lot of people don't necessarily stop to think about small business, especially small business like yours. You're not the kind of small business that has a storefront and
Right.
has, 30 people that come to the office every day. You employ people from all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
You have people handling different things. You are basically running a show of hundreds of people, and there's nobody there sort of holding your hand or like walking you through what to do. And thank God that there was something available financially to help you out a little bit. That's one of the blessings we've had in here in Canada, is the government stepped up a little bit financially.
That's nice.
But for small business, it's such a hard thing because you sort of get left in the dust.
Yeah. And for me, it was really interesting because, like I had mentioned, I had gone through 9/11 and I saw what that did. And that was 3 weeks of not being able to travel. All the planes were grounded. You couldn't go anywhere for 3 weeks. And so when I went through that, and I was just in that startup business, and I thought, you know what, if something like this ever happens again, I need an emergency reserve. So I had saved up about 3 months worth of operational costs, thinking, hey, I could survive a 9/11 type scenario.
Sure.
If it's 3 weeks, it's fine. If it goes a little bit longer, I'm fine. 3 months, I'm good. So I did have emergency funds there, but who knew that now we're into 13 months.
Right.
And there's no way I could have stayed afloat without that assistance. I would have had to close the doors. There's just no way to keep operational and keep people paid, and on the salaried people anyway.
Yeah.
Without having some sort of funds to do it. So I'm very grateful to have that access. I know that a lot of people did have difficulty getting it, and at least on the second round here, they did a much better job of getting down to the small business. But it breaks my heart to see so many restaurants closed, and some of the suppliers that we worked with. Like, one of my favorite suppliers ever was a specialist in New York City. They would do the most amazing VIP type situations for, like, if you wanted to be in a specific place when the ball dropped on New Year's Eve, they could arrange it for you. And unfortunately, they weren't able to sustain and had to close up. So we've seen, unfortunately, many entrepreneurs that have had businesses for 20, 30 years weren't able to survive.
That's just heartbreaking.
It really is.
Not just for the people that they employed and for them in this business that they sunk so much time and effort into, but heartbreaking for the people who will never get that experience now. Yep. Heartbreaking for the people who, because they were helping to bring people into their city, other businesses were thriving and getting more income. And there's this ripple effect that I think, I'd say probably especially here in North America, we almost take for granted, because we were able to travel so freely. We were able to always go and spend our money however we chose. And if the last year has taught us anything, it's like you have to value every aspect of it and look at the ripple effect of it all. Yeah. Flights here in Canada, I'm going to guess, probably aren't going to resume back to what I would call normal until at least the fall, just based on how our vaccine rollout is going. And that's just in country flights. That's not worldwide. That's not within North America. The border is still closed between Canada and the US. So that's all kinds of tourism and travel that's not happening.
Oh, the funny part for me, not funny, but on the other side of it is that I usually in my job travel 20 to 30 weeks out of the year. And I have been grounded in the same chair, in the same office now for going on 390 days. That's not normal. Right. And I think I forgot how to pack. I miss the inside of an airplane. I would take standing in a TSA line for 2 hours and not complain about it. Like you said, I know that we've definitely taken a lot for granted, and especially how that ripple effect from person to person is. Like I said, if the cruise ships can't go to Alaska, then all of a sudden the little bar that's in Alaska doesn't have enough people to come in because they're to sustain their life, because the locals work for the tourism areas. Right. And it has a huge impact across the board.
Yeah, it's so crazy. And things have operated a little bit differently in the US than they have here in Canada. So, have you at least over the last year seen people in the US trying to travel locally, like within their state, to spend some of their tourism money?
It depends on where you are. As
Okay.
you know, we are a little bit of a polarized society down here in the States right now. And it does seem like some states that are more, as they say, conservative, are the ones that are kind of tossing away or moving aside a lot of the restrictions
Right.
um, to and again, it comes to that. I'm trying to keep my economy open versus I'm trying to stay
Sure.
safe. Some states, let's put it this way, some states are doing it better than others in terms of keeping people safe. Other states are doing better job at keeping their economy open, but not so
Right.
much on keeping people safe. So the answer to your question is depending on what state you're in. In Washington, it's been interesting because we are a little bit liberal and we are trying to keep people safe and keep people home, or have been the entire time. It was just recently that our restaurants opened up. And then just the past few weeks that we got to 50% at our restaurants. So I haven't
Oh,
even been
wow.
in a restaurant at all, because that's been how we've been, where
Right.
I see my friends in Florida who are all going out and having dinner and having a good time together. And I'm
Right.
like, what are you people doing? You're supposed to be in your house. So
Right.
I think it is based on not only your feeling in that arena, but also your level of risk that you're willing to take.
Sure.
Some people who have underlying medical conditions aren't going to be so quick to run out and spend some dollars in their local economy, while others are trying their best. So for us, we were looking for any of the small mom and pop restaurants. We kind of pulled a little away from the chains that we knew at least had some pockets that they could help. But
Sure.
our small mom and pop restaurants in the area, we would go and frequent them for takeout and so forth. So I have seen that occur. In other states, I've seen people going, well, you know what? I can't get on a plane right now, or I don't feel comfortable. But
Right.
within my drive market, I'm happy to drive 4 hours to go spend a couple of nights on the beach, or to stay in a hotel just to get out of my four walls that I've been staring at
Right.
for months and months and months. So I think that once this is all over, we probably aren't going to take as much for granted, at least in the short term. One thing I do know is we don't have a really good track record of learning lessons
Long term. Yep.
long term. So I'm sure that we will return eventually to that mind frame of whatever goes. Yeah, whatever.
Sure. Yeah, I'm 100% with you there. I think, I don't know, obviously, you guys are vaccinating at a much quicker rate than we are because you're creating vaccines in country. So I think we're going to
Yeah.
be a little slower than you are to return to whatever the new normal is. But I think probably within a year or two, most people will have forgotten some of this traumatic year and have moved into taking it for granted again, even though I hope that's not the case. But, time will tell, right?
Yeah, exactly. That this will be a hard one to forget. We won't forget it happened, but we might forget the impact that it had,
Sure.
on how deep it goes, because time does heal all wounds. So hopefully not. Hopefully we'll learn these lessons, but it seems like we're just destined to keep repeating them over and over again.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So you did mention because things are different in every state, some people are, traveling a little bit locally. And I know that's happening here in Canada. The government's actually encouraging people this
Oh, good.
summer to stay local and to, within your province. We are so blessed up here in Canada to have so many provincial parks and, local tourist places around the Great Lakes and things like that. So the government is encouraging people to do that. And I encourage everyone listening to this podcast, reach out to Becky, reach out to all of her agents, because they can help you book, even if it's only a few hours from home. Maybe you don't need an overnight stay, but maybe you need, dinner reservations or a tour of some area. They can help you book those things. And my guess is, Becky, a lot of people tend to forget you do those little things, not just the big, like 14-day cruises.
Yeah, we do. As a matter of fact, I was going to back up and just mention one thing, because you reminded me of something in our local area in a town called Redmond, which is about 15 minutes away from me. they took their tourist dollars that they normally spend on tourism advertising out of state to bring people in. They took those dollars and decided to do an offer that if you stayed in one of their hotels, they would give you $100 to go spend at a local restaurant.
Oh,
So
wow.
I thought that was one of the most brilliant ideas to keep local people at least spending money outside in the local area. But
that's awesome.
For us, we can do a lot of the little things. It does usually have to be in conjunction with a hotel stay,
Sure.
because that's how we're compensated. So, but when you do have that hotel stay, yeah, we can help you in different areas. We can help find you tours in the area. We can help you find the little hidden gems of things to go do, and experience that you might not even find in your own backyard. I know that in Seattle, we have a ton of things to do here. And I talk to a lot of my friends, and they usually go on lavish vacations, but haven't wanted to go very far or couldn't get on that cruise ship.
Right.
So it became a matter of let's discover what our own backyard is, because I haven't been to the Mopop Museum in 10 years. Let's see what happened there. So every city has some really cool little hidden gems that you have to really kind of take the time to find them.
I love that. And I love that because you have people who work for you who specialize in different areas, they're aware of some of those things. And if they're not, they're going to research them for you. So it kind of takes all of the worry and all of the stress of having to plan anything yourself right out of it, which is why I love you guys and why I book with you guys. I was so excited that you have finally been able to start rebooking. I'm going to call it rebooking because you had to reschedule the WDW radio cruise.
Yes, the Marvel Day at Sea. One of my favorite things, the things that feed my soul, are the ones where we get to work with groups and take groups on great adventures that they may not be able to do on their own. There's nothing more fun than sailing on a ship with 150 of your closest pals and just having a great time and having these weird experiences together. So we had a couple of different groups that had to cancel. One of them was the radio cruise. The other was a group trip to Italy, and Adventures by Disney to Italy. That we had been planning that for 3 years. For that to be canceled. But happily, I'm almost close to redoing a new contract for that. So hopefully I'll be having that resolved in the next few days. But the Marvel Day at Sea is such a wonderful experience because it's a Disney cruise, and that's wonderful on its own. But then you get an entire day of Marvel. The characters and the food is themed after Marvel, and Thor is there, so you can't really go wrong on that. So we do tend to. I have a lot of different partners like WDW Radio that for their guests and their listeners, we put together trips, and they all want to be together somewhere. So we have some partners that have trips planned to all-inclusives in Mexico right now, and others that are planning other cruise lines and their ships. So I'm really happy to say that we have some interesting CDC or Centers for Disease Control here. Some of the regulations have been the reason why we haven't been able to cruise.
Sure.
Well, Royal Caribbean and Celebrity kind of said, maybe shown them a finger that they may have a little rude finger, and decided that they were going to sail not from the U.S. but sail from Nassau instead.
Oh, okay.
So we have a group that's going to be sailing on board out of Nassau on June 2nd. So right around the corner.
Oh, wow.
So I'm excited to start getting back on track. But the Marvel Day at Sea is going to be in February of 2022, which is going to be a lot more comfortable for those who are still not vaccinated yet,
right,
or are trying to give it some more time for things to settle out before they're comfortable traveling.
Yeah, I'm unbelievably excited for that one. I cannot wait, especially because I feel like we took the WDW cruise out of New Orleans and we came home, and then the whole world fell apart. Like within weeks, the whole world had gone into lockdown. And I feel like We should have just stayed on the boat.
Yeah. And just been out there happily going in circles on board a cruise ship and not knowing in our own little bubble that.
Exactly. I would have been totally okay with that.
Me too. After knowing what we walked off and into, yeah, I would have loved to have been in that bubble for a while. But that is one thing too that a lot of people may not realize is that I know that people tend to be a little scared about cruise ships because the media tends to grab any sickness that happens on a cruise ship and runs like lightning. But the important thing for people to know is that a cruise ship is going to be its own bubble.
Sure.
You're right now, for the ones that have announced so far, you have to be vaccinated before you can get on board. So all the crew's vaccinated. Everybody who gets on board is vaccinated. You're tested also. It's not just that you can show a fake card. You're going to be tested as well. So everyone who gets on board is going to be completely virus free when they get on board. So I think actually cruising, once all of those 74-point plans of keeping people safe are in place. Well, honestly, right now, over 400,000 people have been sailing in different markets and different locations, like in Europe and in Asia. And I think out of the 400,000 people who have traveled, they say they found 10 positive people.
Oh, wow.
So it's not about that. And if you hear that, somebody's been found on board that has been found positive, it's not about keeping it off the boat. Obviously, that is important, but it's more about containing it. So if something's found, there's a plan in place on every single ship to completely contain that virus, so it does not spread to anybody else. So in all honesty, I think that the cruise ships are going to be one of the safest places and ways to travel as everything gets started again.
So based on what you've told me and based on what I've seen, because I've signed up for the WDW radio cruise, I have no reservations about travel because of how safe they are making it, because of how much they're ensuring that people are tested and screened and vaccinated. So for the people who are a little bit hesitant, I completely understand, especially with everything that we've been through in the last year. But reach out to a travel agent, have someone like Beci contact you with what the rules are, how the government in the place that you're visiting is trying to keep people safe, because tourism runs so much of the world that they want people to be safe. They don't want to have to shut down again. So there are all of these rules being put in place in order to keep everyone safe when they travel. So if you have questions, Beci is the perfect person to reach out to. She will put you in touch with someone who specializes in your area and can walk you through what they all are. I can't even fathom how many of these different things you guys are having to learn on the fly, but
that is another piece of the job, because all of a sudden we're having to learn about PCR tests and rapid tests and what's accepted in Hawaii versus what's going to be accepted if you go to Mexico versus what's going to be accepted when you go to a cruise ship. So, for example, when I fly down to Nassau to get on board the ship, they have a specific rule that you have to take a certain type of test within 5 days of arriving. And then within 5 days, because you want to also have that test cover you for getting on board the ship. So you now have to factor in time zones and make sure it's within that 48 hours or 5 days. So it really has become a whole nother level of knowledge that you need to have, even just to go to Hawaii. You have to have a test for a certain time period before you travel. And then if you go inter-island, there's different tests that have to be taken to go to different islands as well. So it's a whole level of complication, and a travel advisor would be so handy to have in that situation, especially if it's going to help you from making a mistake and it costs you nothing.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and just, I don't know. I feel like if the last year has taught us anything, those of us who like to travel regularly, having someone on your side who can say like, no, this person needs a refund. It is not their fault. COVID happened, right?
Yep.
Having that advocate on your side is 100% worth it. especially when it's not costing you anything out of pocket, right? Like that's just, I can't even fathom not using a travel agent, right?
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I think a lot of it comes from the confusion. People are so confused about how we're paid. They think, well, why do I need
Sure.
a travel agent and pay them to do what I can just go online and do myself?
Right.
And that's the thing that drives me crazy, because there is no hard and fast rule out there regarding if somebody's going to charge you or not. So you have to go out and ask the questions. I highly advise people to interview somebody who's going to be your travel advisor. Treat them like a lawyer or a doctor or an accountant. Have a conversation. Go with people who have the word of mouth that say, I use this travel agent. It didn't cost me anything. I loved what she did for me. And find people who will say, I recommend this person, so that you know what you're dealing with, and ask the question up front. Is this going to charge me anything to use your services? If they say yes, in some cases, you might be more comfortable with that person. It might be a person who deals in African safaris only, and that's the only thing they do. And they're going to plan every single step of your vacation. That might be worth a planning fee.
Right.
So you really have to ask the questions and know what you're getting into, and feel comfortable with that person, because they're making some pretty big decisions for you or recommendations for you based on who they think you are or perceive you are. If you, it's kind of the way I feel about people who just go to what we call OTAs, or online travel agencies. Those are specifically like Expedia out there, those types.
Okay.
Where you're going to a website and you're just plugging some stuff in and seeing a deal and booking it. How do you know that that resort's really going to match your needs?
Right.
How do you know that the pretty pictures don't show you that the airport is right behind it and you're going to hear a jet flying over you every single moment? So that's where reaching out to a human being, one that's actually a consultant, someone who works with you consultatively to say, okay, what resort type or experience are you looking for? Are you looking for something quiet in the middle of nowhere? Are you looking for something in the middle of a theme park? What is it you want to experience? Have those conversations, and then they can match you up to the right experience.
That's such fantastic advice for everyone. And it makes me wonder, how did you decide that this was what you wanted to do with your life? Because not everyone wants to help people plan a vacation. That's a very specific thing.
Yeah, this one came up really weird, and I'm a jack of all trades and master of none. I have a very varied background. When I got out of high school, I decided I wanted to become an EMT, and I was hoping to become a paramedic. That was my focus and my drive.
Wow.
So I started in that, and I was an EMT, and I became a firefighter, and I was doing all this stuff. And then an opportunity knocked on my door and said, "Hey, do you want to learn how to do pyrotechnics?" And so I did that, and I was on the road with rock bands for 8 years. And then I had another knock on the door that said, "Hey, are you ready to get off the road?" And I'm like, "Yes, please. I'm ready to settle down." And I went to work for a software company, which the older folks in your listening world may remember, called Egghead Software. And I went to work for them, and ended up in the software sector, where I ended up becoming a director of customer service for a different company later on. But that's where I met my husband. And at one point we decided we were going to try to have a family. And I said, but I don't want to work like we do, because we were both in high tech. And in high tech, you were working 12-hour days. And sometimes you're sleeping under your desk because you have to be ready for the next build to test it, to get ready.
Wow.
So we were spending hours and hours and hours at work. And I just looked at my husband. I said, we can't have a family and this crazy lifestyle. And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, you know what? All my life, I've really loved to travel, and I think I'd be good at this whole travel agency thing, because I had a bad experience with a travel agent, unfortunately. And it was before I ever thought about being in this. They didn't fully prepare me. There were some mistakes that were made. I wasn't matched up to the right thing. And I walked away from that thinking, somebody can do this better. I know I could do this better. With my customer service background, I know I could do this better. So my husband looked at me and goes, okay, what do we do? How do you want to do this?
Aw.
And it goes, we can survive on my salary. If you want to chase your dream, let's make that happen for
Oh, I
you.
love that.
Yeah. Thank
Aw.
God for him, because he actually hand coded my first website.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was amazing. It won awards at the time. It was right back when the internet was starting to become a thing,
Okay.
and so it kind of took off from there. 9/11 happened. The owner of the agency that I was affiliated with at the time decided she wanted to sell the business, and that's when I stepped up and said, "Hey, sure, I'll give this a shot." And built from there. Our partnership had a fallout, and so I walked away from that and started my own company. And that was about 15 years ago that I had my own company going, and that's where MEI was born. And over time, I never thought it would get to this. I always thought I would just have a small little company that I would plan vacations for my friends and my family and their friends, and that I would just kind of live this nice, simple life of bringing in a little bit of income and making and feeding my soul. And then I discovered my passion. And all of a sudden, as that passion grew, I wasn't feel like I was working. And then I was sharing that passion with other people who had a love for something, whether it be cruise ships or Europe or Disney.
Right.
And they wanted to do the same thing that I wanted to do way back when. And so I've taught over 500 people to do this job over 22 years.
Wow.
And some of them survive, and some of them moved on and created their own companies around their own passions. Others said, I'm done. I can't do this. Because a lot of people don't realize how much work it is until you get it, and the responsibility. Because clearly we're taking somebody's dream. And there's high expectations for people from their vacation, because they've saved, in some cases, many years to have this experience. So you want to make sure it's right. There's a lot of pressure on it too.
Well, I can attest for everyone listening, you guys do a fantastic job at making sure that it is right, regardless of situation. Even just through the inquiry process, there is always follow-up. There is always, is there any other questions? Contact me anytime. In fact, when Sue and I were getting ready for the WTW cruise for the Marvel Day, she said, I work 24/7. Just call me whenever. And I thought, you work 24/7. That's not okay. I can't call you at 2 a.m. No one can call you at 2 a.m. But I understand the drive, the just wanting to answer the question, make it okay, help people relax through this process, because it can be stressful, especially if it's something you're not familiar with, you've never booked before, you don't understand. If people have never been on a cruise, they don't know what that's like. They don't know how to pack. They don't know what that experience is going to be. So having someone who can answer those questions for you and walk you through the process is a godsend.
Yeah, or just being there as a safety net. So if something goes wrong, or you have a question, at least you have somebody to turn to with it. And we're all kind of in that 24/7 mind frame, because it's interesting when you have people that are traveling abroad, especially, or outside of the time zone. You have to be there if something goes wrong. So that's where that 24/7 scenario comes into play.
That's fair.
But there are times when, like if I have a client traveling, I'll track their flight, so I know when they've landed. I'll check in with them a couple hours later to make sure they got to the hotel and everything is okay, because we're really invested in making sure that everything goes as planned, as much as we can. Right. But I think our biggest value, though, is when things go horribly wrong. For example, every hurricane season, for the exception of the last one, which we had nobody on cruise ships. So it was like, hey, this
nobody could travel.
Hurricane season I've ever had. Exactly. That becomes pizza day, because if a hurricane is heading towards Florida, and you have in the agency, we might have 200 or 300 people on property at any given time. All of a sudden, people are trying to get out. People are trying to get safe. People trying to extend their stay because they can't go anywhere. That becomes all hands on deck, and you have to make sure that you're there for them when things go wrong.
Yeah, I can't even, it's funny that you say that, because I hadn't thought about hurricanes or earthquakes or those sorts of natural disasters, right? When you're planning a vacation, you're just like, this is the place I want to go, and it's so cool. And you don't think about all the other stuff that you might have to contend with.
Exactly. And especially if you're getting into this industry, you never think about those things. All you think about is, hey,
Sure.
I'm going to make magical, happy vacations for my friends and family. And then you realize, oh yeah, there's things that happen around the world. If there's any type of natural disaster, or if people are traveling abroad, there could be uprisings that happen in places, and you have to make sure that people are
Sure.
safe for that. There's a lot of responsibilities that are tied to the job, and we take it pretty seriously. But don't get me wrong, we have a lot of fun too.
I can attest to that part as well. For everyone listening, I will let you know. I don't even remember what the catalyst was, Becky, but on our cruise from New Orleans, we were all standing in the atrium. I don't know if we were getting ready to head to dinner or what, but somebody had mentioned something wasn't happening. So you were going to organize I think it was supposed to be like a whiskey tasting or something. And
Yes. Oh,
it turned into a
yes.
totally different drink kind of tasting, but it was super fun.
Yeah, because the group was all kind of talking about wanting to do an activity together and if it could be done. And when you're doing those private events on board a ship, it takes some coordination, and you kind of have
Sure.
to know the right people on board to go and say, hey, can we take over one of your tastings? Because those events are extraordinarily popular, and they're very limited in how many they can do, and
Right.
the staff to pull them off. So that became a whisper to somebody else. I said, all right, if you guys can get 25 people that want to do it, tell me and I'll see if I can arrange it. And that became like the game of telephone from person to
Yep.
person, and seeing who would commit to make sure we hit the minimum number. But that was fun. I kind of enjoy that type of thing because it's, again, making a little magic. One of
Right.
my favorite quotes from Walt Disney is, it's kind of fun to do the impossible.
Oh,
And I have used that as kind of my mantra since the company expanded beyond just myself. And that's the thing that feeds my soul, when we get to do the special events, the really special things that I dream up with partners like Lou Mangello and others,
right.
that we can put these events together that that no one else is able to do, because it came from our imagination. So that is one of the things that really lights me up about my job.
Oh, I love that. And I love for us standing on the outside while you were organizing that, it seemed like almost instantaneous. It was like somebody mentioned it, somebody said, who's willing to sign up? And then, like, within a day, we were at the wine tasting or the whiskey tasting or whatever it was supposed to be. We were all getting drunk at the bar, basically. And it magically, it all just fell into place. And I understand it didn't all magically fall into place. You had to work pretty hard to make it happen. But from the outside, it was just like, oh, poof, it's done. And it just felt so amazing.
And that means I did my job correctly. Because if it looks like it was easy and it just happened, that is exactly how I want the perception to be to the guests, because no one needs to see the sausage being made. You just need to enjoy the sausage.
Well, we definitely enjoyed the sausage. And I have a question for you, because I am super excited for two new things that are coming. And you probably don't have inside information, but I'm going to ask you anyway. And you can just tell
Okay.
me, like, I can't give you any information. But Virgin has boats in the water that no one has ever been able to sail on. When is
I
that going to
know.
change?
It is hopefully right around the corner. And I cannot tell you how excited I am about Virgin Voyages. It
Adults
is,
only.
yes, exactly. It is one of my very favorite things on this planet. And I know that they had moved their sailings. I want to say it was through August that they had canceled. It might be even through September, but I'd have to look to be sure. But I do know that I'm booked on one on October 8th.
Oh,
And I am going to sail on her. And that this is, of course, they had made those changes for the US.
sure.
However, I'm looking at this. Oh yes, sailings from July 4th through September 17th. The Scarlet Lady were put on hold.
Okay.
However, for those lucky people that are in the UK this summer, all of you have you have your choice of cruise lines, because all the cruise lines are pretty much, I know of at least 6 now, are
Wow.
doing special sailings from the UK only for UK residents only.
Oh, wow.
And Virgin Voyages is one of them.
Oh, I am so jealous.
I am so jealous. I was supposed to be on her. They do a press kickoff, like
Okay.
a sailing before the inaugurals, basically to
Sure.
show her off to travel agents and to media. And I'm usually happily and luckily on most of those. So I was so excited to be on this, the first adults only ship. And it's going to be so neat because they are revolutionizing how a cruise experience is. But nobody knows what that really is yet, because no one's been able to experience it. So, horrible timing for them, because they were just about ready to make their grand entrance when all of this hit. But I'm excited for what the experience is going to be. So stay tuned.
I am keeping my fingers crossed, and I am so excited to hear how it goes for you in October, because I saw a picture when they announced that they couldn't let people sail, and they started posting on social media the pictures of the, inside the boat and the rooms and whatever. And there was a picture of a hammock on one of the balconies, and I was like,
Yes.
sold. I am there. I am. Adults only had me, but you put a freaking hammock on the balcony. I am there.
They are on every single sea terrace. So it's not like only the suite has a thing. It is all the sea terraces which are their words for just a standard balcony ship.
Oh,
so you're going to have, if you sail in a balcony, you will have one of those wonderful little hammocks.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. So second question.
Uh-huh.
Do we have an update on when Disney's new boat is going to hit the water?
The Wish. She's coming, and a lot of people are extraordinarily excited about the Disney Wish, because it's the next new ship. And
right.
Disney has a kind of a cult following, as we all know. So anything new is going to be pounced upon like a poor little piece of candy in the middle of a kindergarten class. And that's what's going to happen with the Wish. She is scheduled to sail in summer of 2022.
Okay.
We don't know exactly what that means, but usually summer for Disney is May. So May, June is usually that. So it could, and again, I know nothing for sure, but I'm just going off history. So we're probably going to see her sailing somewhere in May or June, which means we are almost a year out. We're coming up on the year out area for that. So I have a really sinking feeling, not the ship sinking, but a sinking feeling that we're going to hear a lot more information probably in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Maybe 2 to 3 weeks after we get some information. Then I'm sure they're going to announce a sale date when everything is going to go on sale. So believe me, that's going to be a pizza day around here, because when a new ship goes up on the market, that usually means that I'll be working from 4 a.m. to 4 a.m.
I'm sure. Especially Disney, like you said, and it's not just like cult following. It's like anyone who's experienced a Disney boat, it's hard to put into words what that experience is for people who haven't been on it. The magic, the customer service of Disney just in general that extends onto the boat. And then, the food and I can't even, yes.
All of that, just all that. And when it's going to be a new ship, it's going to be amazing, because of course the Imagineers have had a lot of years to come up with what they could do next that's going to be so much more exciting. And that's what's kind of cool in the cruise industry for me, is that Disney was one of the first back in 1998 to step forward and say, we're going to change things up a little bit. This is going to be some new concepts like rotational dining, and like having staterooms that had a split bath so that someone could be getting ready in one and showering in the other. Some of the concepts that they came up about sailing that now are fleet-wide in other cruise lines, because they saw that and thought, yeah, that's a great idea. We should do that too. So now you're seeing Royal Caribbean and Celebrity have been amazing at coming up with new stuff. And then we know Virgin Voyages is now. So we've been kind of waiting for Disney to show us their cards. They've had a lot of years to think about it. And so we're waiting to see what's next.
Do you think, and certainly with all of your years of travel experience, if you don't want to answer this question, feel free not to answer this question. But do you think that it's going to take the 3 to 5 years that, economists are estimating it will for travel to get back to normal? Or do you think, because of how cooped up we've all been, that within 12 to 24 months, we will be back traveling at the rate that we were before?
Well, there's a couple answers to that question, because the travel industry or the tourism industry has different slices of the pie. And some slices are going to take longer to recover than others. So a good example is, if you were even thinking of traveling in 2022, you're almost too late now. Because the pent up demand, where people aren't quite ready yet to go, maybe in the next couple or 3 months, they're really thinking about it in 2022 because they know that they'll be vaccinated by then. They believe in their heart of hearts that it's going to be safe and everything is going to be back to as normal as it can be for being a year after pandemic. So we're already seeing ships filling up. We're already seeing prices go up. We're seeing difficulties in getting park reservations and hotels, frankly, in Disney World in 2022, especially in those high demand dates like spring breaks or holidays when the kids are out of school.
Summer vacations, things like that.
Exactly. So I think that's going to recover fast because people have been saving their money over the year. Many have been lucky enough to stay and work. So they've been saving up their money. They haven't been able to spend it. Now they're ready to go and make up for lost time. Then you have other sectors like the business sector, and a lot of different locations thrive off business travel. So not only the airlines, but conventions. And no one's been able to have a convention because of this. And there's also the liability associated with a company telling their employees to go be together in a crowded space. So businesses are probably going to be much slower to the response. But even if you're looking at a place like Disney World, for all of us that are going to go and have our vacation, they're great. But a lot of their money comes from, and a lot of their profits come from the businesses who bring their conventions there too. Same thing in Las Vegas. You're going to have the same problem. It's part of it is going to recover fast. Other sectors are going to take probably the 2 or 3 years before it looks like they're back on track.
Wow. It's so great to have your perspective because obviously not as a travel agent, I'm just thinking like, how quickly can I get out of my 4 walls? Because
I'm with you.
We haven't been able here in Canada. Lockdowns have been pretty consistent. We're back in another one now. So it's just like the sooner I can get on an airplane, like you said, like just I miss packing. I miss sitting on an airplane. I miss talking to people at the airport. I miss airport food. Like whoever thought we would get to this point, food. Right? Like you just, yes. Anyway.
Yep. That's how I feel. Cause I'm in this exact same boat. I'm sitting here. This is my job and I can't travel yet. So I'm close. I did get my second vaccine. I am a Moderna girl, and in about 10 days, I'll be able to break free and fly. So believe me, I already have something planned. It's the moment that I can. So fingers crossed that everything goes as planned and I don't forget to pack half my stuff, which may happen.
Yeah, I think the first couple times I travel, I'll probably go back to the old school like list of writing down everything I need, just because it's like it's no longer habit because we haven't been traveling so frequently.
Exactly. I even look back. This is a problem for all of us girls because I don't wear a lot of makeup until I'm traveling and out. And I realized all of my makeup is a year old. I now have to go and replace all my eyeshadow that I loved and all my foundation that's been sitting there, and it's now like a cemented goop in a bottle.
Right.
So I literally had to go out and throw out all of my makeup, and now I'm replenishing my stock.
Yeah, the things you don't think about, right? Like absolutely. Oh, yeah, it's crazy. And I have a box of, not that anyone really needs to know this, but I have a box of like sample sizes that I take when I travel, because then I don't have to travel with full size product, right? And like that stuff expires eventually. Now I have to sort through it all to see what has to be thrown out, and just those little things. Oh,
like we all need anything more to do on our list right now.
Exactly. Well, I want to be really mindful of your time. So do you want to let everyone know where they can find you so they can get in touch with you and all of your wonderful people for any of their travel questions and needs?
Yeah, absolutely. For me personally, and this is one thing I offer to everybody. If you're on Facebook, I'm at Beci Mehnken. So BeciMahnken, and that's true for Facebook, Twitter, and for Instagram. So please, please, please follow me. And if you have any questions, message me. I do Facebook Messenger like a beast. So if you have questions, you just message me anytime and we're happy to help answer any questions. Or if you'd like to be matched up with a vacation planner at my company, I'm happy to do an introduction to somebody who's going to fit the need for wherever you're looking to travel. So feel free to do that. If you want to follow the company on Twitter, it's MEI Travel, which is for our Disney cult members, which I am a card-carrying member happily, and also at MEI Travel over on Twitter. But on Facebook and Instagram, it is MEI Travel, and you can find us there.
Awesome. And if anybody has any issues tracking her down, just hit me up. I will 100% hook you up with Beci and all of her wonderful people. So the last thing I want to do, Beci, is typically when I interview people, I ask 4 different questions. So are you up for a few questions?
Oh, sure. Now I'm not nervous or anything.
You can feel free not to answer, but I promise they're not that difficult. Although I will tell you the very last one that I ask you, Lou says is the hardest one. So just FYI.
No, you had to put that in front of me. Jeez. So, all right. It might take me a while to answer, but that's okay. Okay.
The first one is, what's the best piece of advice or the worst piece of advice you've ever been given and why?
Gosh, I've gotten a lot of advice in my time. The best piece, I would say, is when I was told by one of my favorite business mentors to always trust your gut. If something doesn't feel like it's right, or if something feels like it could be right, follow that passion, follow that feeling. Because he said, always trust yourself and your intuition. And I that's how I've been operating my business now. From the very beginning, is trusting what I felt to be the right thing to do, and always taking that high road, not always chasing the profit, but chasing the right thing. And that's been something from my gut. So I think that's probably the best piece of advice.
I love that.
The worst was when somebody told me at one time, yeah, it's great. It's a great idea to get a partner. No, I have gone through 2 situations now where business partners don't work out. Either you find out that their agenda is so much different than yours, versus some who just will unfortunately outright lie to you to get their way and get things done their way, and kind of it ends up just going completely around what your vision is for your company. So trust yourself, find people that you can trust to work with you, but don't give them half of what you own.
Sure. Totally fair. The next question is, what's one thing about yourself that you want to work on?
Oh, wow. Only one?
Well, I suppose you can pick more than one if you want to, but you're only required to share one.
Oh man, Crystal, I'm a hot mess. There's
Aren't we all?
So much I'd love to work on. I would love to get back to my 20-year-old weight, but that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But I think it would probably be in my best interest if I took more time for myself. But as an entrepreneur, that's very difficult. Your company is your baby. The buck stops here. So when something does happen, you have to be there. So I do tend to work 7 days a week, and my staff tells me that that's a bad thing, and my husband tells me that's a bad thing. So I think if it was anything, is to at least give myself permission to have some time to myself, was probably one of the things I need to do.
I think that's a great thing. And having been quote unquote on vacation with you, even though I know those trips are not really vacation.
Yeah, they're not vacation for me, unfortunately.
You don't ever have downtime. And that was one of the things that I think I had hoped for you during the last WDW radio cruise.
See,
not knowing how much you have to do behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's those become a regular work day for me. So you want the secret of when it really is my vacation? There are two things I do.
Once everybody gets off the boat.
No, because when you're working and when you're with a group, you never can take time for yourself. That is a work day. But if I want to really take a vacation and plug, there's two things I do. The first one is I'll book myself a suite on a ship with nobody else there. Like my husband will come along, but there's maybe a couple of really close friends, but no one else knows that I'm there. So that it turns, and I usually stay in the suite and have the butler bring me stuff and have room service bring me stuff. The other one is I take an Adventures by Disney, because
I love that.
It's one of those things where I can go on a trip where you don't know anybody except for the people you're traveling with, but the guides take care of everything, and they take care of it to the type A personality that I am. So I can trust that it's being done and being done right. And I don't feel like I have to look over their shoulder to make sure that we're going to catch the train on time.
Right.
So the Adventures by Disney is the one thing my husband talked me into doing to Ireland, just he and I at one point. We knew nobody else on the trip, which was perfect. So I didn't have to do I'm a travel agent.
Right.
Because the moment you say that to if you're on a cruise ship and you're at a group table and you don't know anybody and you say that, all of a sudden it becomes work.
Sure.
So I haven't had to ever lie about what I do for a living, but I just choose not to tell if I can avoid it.
That's totally fair. I love that you brought up Adventures by Disney, because I haven't been on an Adventures by Disney yet, but it is on my list.
It should be, because once you've done one, they are addictive. And that's now, we do buyouts with the group, like the Italy is Adventures by Disney.
Sure.
So I work closely with them when we do a buyout. It's all us, all our fellow WDW radio cult members. And we are going to go and have a fantastic time together with Disney having our backs and taking care of everything. So I can concentrate fully on the guests rather than having to worry about all that background stuff.
I love that. Okay. Next question. If you could go back in time and give your younger self any piece of advice, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
I think I would probably tell myself to not sell myself short, that I can bring value to people's lives, that there is opportunities out there to make myself happy, but also to make others happy and to support others in their efforts, and to learn the word philanthropy and to live by it, which is something that I've learned in my 30s and 40s, but I really would have loved to have learned it in my 20s and been much more benefit to others.
That's so awesome. I almost kind of want to end it there, but I'm not going to, because I think the last question is the most important one. And this is the one Lou had a hard time with.
Okay, I'm ready. Hold on. Let me stretch for a second and make sure I'm ready for that one. Okay.
What does happiness mean to you? There is no wrong answer. I will preface that. It's just
what
something
did he say?
He actually had a few different answers. Let's be clear.
I can too.
But I mainly ask this to people because I think a lot of times we don't stop to ask ourselves, like, what really is happiness? We strive for this thing called happiness, but we don't really know what it means. So I love to ask people, because I think we all have a very different definition on any given day of what it can be.
See, and that's what I was going to say. My aunt, if you would have asked me pre-pandemic, would probably be different than now.
Sure.
And that reason is, it's actually kind of funny that it ties back to Lou, because when we recorded a show talking about returning when Walt Disney World reopened again, the entire panel lived in Florida and they were able to go back. And I am the only one on the panel that didn't have the ability to go back and revisit the magic and get my little, injection of Disney magic that I needed. And I found myself getting really emotional, but it wasn't unhappiness or emotion because I couldn't go to Disney. That wasn't it. But that was the catalyst. What really was the problem is that I hadn't seen my friends.
Right.
But Lou and his family are family to me. I'm the big sister that he never had and probably never wanted, but he ended up with. But those people that I routinely see, because when I go down there for work, I see it's usually once a month. And so I get to see all these people and we get to do things together. Where I live, most of the people that were friends have moved out of the area. So it's kind of my husband and myself and maybe just a couple of friends. But even the people who are here, I haven't been able to see because of all the restrictions. So my answer now is happiness to me is going to be when I get to return to where my friends are and sitting around a table and having a meal together and laughing about all of the crazy things that we've just been through and seeing them in one place and being able to hug them again. It's going to be an uncomfortable, long hug.
Awkward.
Very awkward, but I feel sorry for like the first 10 people I get to actually hug because that is going to be really uncomfortable and awkward, but I'm sorry. It's just going to be that way. Because there's a lot of hugs that I have to get back out. So I think, happiness right now means to me a return to that connection and those relationships that I've been missing so much over the past year.
I love that answer, and sign me up for an awkward hug. I'm totally in, because I will be exactly the same way. Everyone is getting awkward, weird, long, inappropriate in some way, probably hugs, because you don't realize, especially when you're a hugger, you don't realize just how much you miss that. And then you are thrown in this weird situation where you can't be with people, you can't touch people. And it's just like, wait, what?
Well, for me too, it's kind of weird because this has been over like the last 7 to 10 years or so, but I'm an only child. So I've never really had that, that sibling bond with too many people in my life. I've got people that, like one gal that I grew up with, that is the closest thing to a sister that I possibly have. She's the kind of person that we can go without talking for 3 months, but if we get on the phone and talk, it's like we talked yesterday.
Right.
And so those relationships have become so important to my soul. And I just never really knew how much they became a part of me until I wasn't able to act on being able to be around those people. And while Zoom calls are great, it helped us from here to there to get us through the tunnel. But there's nothing like being with the people you love.
Agreed. And oh my God, yes. That's, Beci, I think you sort of gave me the perfect way to end the podcast, because I'm almost in tears that you have summed up sort of how I feel as well about this last year. And it's just, I cannot wait to see you in person again.
I'm with you. I'm willing to see anybody that's not my husband right now. I love my husband. Don't get me wrong. But he's working upstairs. I'm working downstairs. We see each other at lunch. It's been great. I think in the 22 years we've been married, I think that's right. We've never been together this much. So we're making up for all the lost time when I was on the road over the years. But just personal relationships and those people in your life, you can't replace them. The special bond and ties that you have to people and the shared experiences, I just miss that.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, just yes. I am all over it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know we sort of have gone over our hour, but I appreciate not just the wisdom that you've given everybody and the information, which I think is so valuable to people, but just for being honest about how this last year has been and how you're feeling, because I think there's so many of us that are struggling in ways that we haven't been able to openly talk about, because, there are sort of bigger fish to fry based on, so-and-so has this to deal with. And so I can't complain about this problem. And I think it's really important for people to heal or to hear from us that, yes, there are ups and downs. Yes, it is trying. Yes, sometimes being locked in the house with your husband for 12 months is not a good thing. But, there are also good things that go along with it all. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to see you.
Right back at you. For anyone who is listening and is interested in contacting Beci, you can go to MEI-travel.com. You can email me or contact me. You guys all know, you listen to the podcast, you know how to reach me. Or as Becky said, you can find her on Facebook and Twitter and all of the grams and everything else that's out there. But if you have any problems tracking her down, let me know. I will put links to her website and her social media in the notes for the show. And I hope everyone has a wonderful week, and I will catch you next week. Bye for now. Thank you again, Becky.